All right, Dimitri. Do I say Dimitri?
You can say Dimitri.
Awesome. Dimitri, welcome to the Dear Digital podcast.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John. No, welcome to the Dear Digital podcast, Dimitri. I'm super happy to have you here because I have tons of questions for you. I know you very well, but maybe the audience doesn't, so it might be good to introduce yourself.
So as you mentioned, John, I'm Dimitri, co-founder of Dear Digital, together with a guy called John. Mostly agency background, worked for a lot of cool clients like Samsonite, BNP Paribas, Proximus, then went to the Birdhouse Startup Accelerator. There I met another one of our co-founders called Niels. Did a lot of cool work with startups within the Birdhouse, then decided to start with Dear Digital, e-commerce agency together with Niels. Also founded Puzzle in a Bag during that time, a D2C company, which was actually a way to prove that what we consult on as an agency, that we can actually also do in real life, experience the struggles that D2C companies experience in a way that is different than just going through a service provider. Really cool experience. And now we started Dear Digital 2.5 years ago, helping D2C companies, digital first companies in scaling and building their e-commerce store, which has been an amazing ride for those last couple of years.
Definitely. You often mention D2C. Samsonite isn't a D2C example. BNP Paribas isn't also. Is there a reason, you think, why you went into the D2C direction, an agency and a brand?
Yeah, I think the difference between those two, big corporates and direct to consumer, is that mostly in the early stages, of course, you are in talks with the founder, the CMO, let's say, of the company. With the corporates, there's less room for creativity. D2C is structured in a way that you can very easily take decisions, take risks as well, because it's focused on several channels, but these channels are mostly organized under one umbrella. So I think the experimenting that you can do on a D2C company and actually having an idea, building it the next day and actually seeing the results a week after is something amazing that I haven't seen in any other type of forms of clients or partners.
Yeah, maybe if we go back a little bit, what did you do exactly for a type of Samsonite? Was it an advertising also?
It was advertising campaigns, mostly focused on the creative aspect of it. Maybe interesting also to say that for corporate storytelling wise, there's strict guidelines. There are things you have to say that you cannot say. A bit linked to what I just said regarding the experimenting in D2C, almost, especially early stage brands, everything is possible. Nothing is needed.
Yeah.
So I think, that is the biggest difference that you have. I think I've seen branding guidelines, which were like a telephone book that thick. With a startup, it's a PDF that you get sent with 2 pages, and then you already can be happy. And now with scaling brands, that gets better and better, and also more and more important. But you still have a type of flexibility. If something works very well, D2C brands are likely also to go a bit besides the branding guidelines, for example.
Is there maybe, before we dive in deeper into the digital native brands and the D2C, the agency, is there anything that you miss as working for a corporate? You said experimentation is awesome for a smaller brand where you can actually talk to the customers, see the results.
Yeah, I think both have benefits and disadvantages. structure might be something that I miss a bit. There's definitely more chaos linked to D2C brands who are going very rapidly. A lot of brands are funded and they can go fast. So structure is often something that is a bit neglected. But then again, it's also part of the fun. So I think, as I mentioned, disadvantages and benefits at the same time.
Yeah. You started Dear Digital before you started Puzzle in a Bag.
Yeah.
How did you end up starting Puzzle in a Bag?
I started it, as I mentioned, because of the fact that we wanted to create something which was not a consultancy service or a consultancy agency beside Dear Digital. I think it was important for us to really go into deep dive into one project, understand what that means from A to Z, to be able to consult companies in the proper way. I think also that's where one of our benefits lies, that the talks that we have with our clients is something we can easily relate to. The struggles, the nice moments, we've been there as well. And I think that's something that, in my opinion, every agency should once go to the life cycle of one of their clients to experience it themselves.
Yeah, very interesting. Puzzle in the Bag was started back in 2020, if I'm correct. Is there anything you would change if you would start it in 2023?
Yeah, that's a really cool question. I think a lot has changed. We're living in a fast-moving world, and especially the niche or the industry where we are in is changing every day. I think from what I would change is definitely purely product founder fit. I think is one of the most crucial ones that I underestimated. Puzzle in a Bag, I think, is an amazing company, amazing brand. I'm the kind of person that wakes up every morning from something that I'm passionate about. I'm very passionate about the marketing behind Puzzle in a Bag. The product itself was a bit more complex for me to be super enthusiastic about after a couple of years, and that's a struggle. That's something if I start a D2C brand again, that I would really find that product that I'm hyper passionate about is something crucial. Purely strategy-wise, I think everything has changed. So I think the focus of having just a Shopify store and running some meta ads, I don't believe in that structure anymore. That has changed. I think for the future of a company like Puzzle in a Bag, there should be in retail, there should be in the standard boekhandels, that kind of shops. The offline touchpoints that you create are on a different level than the online touchpoints that you create, especially trust-wise.
Yeah.
So
what do you mean exactly by that?
I'm going to elaborate on that. So if you see, for example, let's say Puzzle in a Bag specifically, it's a puzzle. Okay, it's in a very cool bag. It catches the eye. If you see it in a standard boekhandel and have that touch point there, that moment, that blink of an experience, what does that mean for a customer? Is that, okay, standard boekhandel decided to take that product into one of their stores, or Fnac, for example, which is, I think, still a bit more premium even as a brand. They decided, they gave the label Fnac to that product. That means something, especially for people who often shop in those stores. That says, okay, if they trust those guys, I can trust those guys. Everyone can run Facebook ads. I'm not ditching on meta ads or Facebook ads. I think they're crucial in every type of digital first strategy. But I still believe that those different touch points are complementary to each other. If you only have the meta ads, it's really hard to build a business around, because running a meta ad, it's really not expensive to run one. And it has become a commodity in the sense that everyone can start this type of ads. You don't need an agency. To run a meta ad, you can just do it yourselves in a proper way. It might not be the most premium or best way, but you can do it yourselves. And that's something that is different with being in retail. There you have to really struggle to get in those stores, and it means something, that touch points.
Yep.
If you, for example, saw that puzzle in a bag in Fnac, and then afterwards you seen a Facebook ad, and then you talk to someone who really likes the product, those are 3 touch points that could actually become a conversion. It's still possible to convert through an ad alone, but having multiple touch points is the way to go and will be your competitive advantage.
Cool. So that means that you would start right off the bat when you start a company, start within retail, start online, do the omni-channel approach.
Yeah, starting is a big word. Planting those seeds to make sure that after a couple of months, 6 months, that you can open those doors when you have proven that D2C wise you're getting some traction. There is product market fit, or then I think it's very important to make sure that those doors are already open, that you don't have to struggle to get them in them once that opportunity has opened.
You say product market fit. Is there a way to determine if you have any product market fit?
Again, good question, John. I think it's based on your business case. If your business case makes sense and you have a certain traction, I think in the early stages of Puzzle and Back and a lot of clients that I worked with, it's not that easy to find traffic. You make a good ad or a great ad, whatever. Traffic can be bought. It can be rather expensive or rather cheaper, but it can be bought. The most difficult thing is actually converting that traffic into buyers. And that's for me is the metric where you need to look at to find if you want to see if you have product market fit.
Yeah.
It's something that can it's something that can level up. But I have to say, what I strongly believe in, is a shitty website can sell a good product. A good website cannot sell a shitty product. And that's, I think, is my strongest belief in the years that I have been in e-commerce.
Yep, very interesting. So imagine you start something new, you have somehow have a product market fit, you start feeling it in a business case that there is some traction, you're paying less to Meta in that case. If you have a product market fit, then in the end your acquisition cost will just be lower, right? That's the thinking around it.
Yeah.
Any conversion on the website would be better.
Yeah. When we see it working, the overall picture, there was product market fit. The website is set up in the right way. We have ads running. All those basics are in place. If the founder or the founder's team is just waiting on conversions coming in through the website and through ads, that's not the way to go. Okay. We see it working when there's actual how do I say it? That the founders team and the team behind is actually out there, being present. And I can give you a list of 20 things what being out there means: building a PR, creating partnerships, making sure that you're present on the organic channels. It's not that one thing; it's many things together. Having being present in retail, having a pop-up. It's actually screaming about the fact that you exist. That's the most crucial thing. And if founders do that, we see that in paid advertising, it goes way smoother.
Yep.
It will not solve everything. As I mentioned, if you don't have product market fit, if everything, your basics are not set up right, it won't change that, but it will improve everything customer acquisition cost-wise with 30, 40, 50% up. And then your business model could actually work. Otherwise, it will be quite difficult.
Yeah, it can take off. Yeah, very interesting. If you were to start it, and again, you have that product market fit and you feel some traction, what type of channels would you consider in 2023, and what type of channels did you consider in 2020?
Yeah, 2020 definitely Meta. I think I don't know they changed their name, but it was still Facebook then. But definitely Facebook, Instagram. Those were the major channels. And spoiler alert, I think they still are at this point. A lot of people were dissing on Meta as a platform because it's harder. It became harder. It became more difficult, more expensive to actually create traction and bring in conversions through that platform. But what I've seen last couple of months, CPMs are dropping. Actually, I think it's still a conversion machine. Meta compared to YouTube to TikTok, it's still something that converts like hell. And I think that's because people actually have buyer's intent when they are on that platform, compared to a TikTok, let's say, where you are looking at content and you actually want to be entertained or educated or whatsoever. On Facebook, you are open to actually clicking on something and disappearing from that platform.
Yep.
That's a different way of approaching that platform. And I think it's the biggest reason why Meta is still a beast in everything that is related to getting new acquisitions. As I mentioned, it became harder, it became more difficult, also because a lot more advertisers are on it. But then again, it would still be a big part of my acquisition channels. The biggest thing that changed would be the fact that maybe 3-4 years ago, it could have been 95% of my media budget and not only my media budget, my effort in total of what I'm focusing on. Now it would be rather as a founder, and I mean not as an agency owner or a performance marketer, it would be about 60%, and that's a major difference. That's 40% will be the things that I just mentioned, being out there, retail, but also the other channels, TikTok. I think those are the basics: Pinterest, Google Ads. Of course, YouTube might come into place at one point, not in the early stages. But that mix will look different in those 3 years that have gone by.
Yeah, I think it's not only the past years, but it's been several years now. But these platforms, Google and Meta, they're constantly changing. From what I've heard from you guys, is that the algorithms behind these platforms are getting stronger, better.
Yep.
Has that changed the game completely for you guys?
You mean as people who are actually running the campaigns?
Yeah.
Yeah, it has changed a lot. I want to be very open about that. It has become way easier to do performance marketing and a lot harder at the same time. Easier in the way that, as you mentioned, the algorithms like Google with Performance Max, Meta with Advantage Plus are creating those tools, and it's also because of the fact that there was iOS 15 data changing, becoming more complex. I don't want to deep dive into that because I think it's a subject that might come afterwards. But that changed the game, and those platforms actually decided to find ways to do targeting and to do the actual technical setup more themselves, because the algorithms are stronger than people actually deciding to put inputs, like humans putting input in those machines, that they're now becoming easier to manage, and that the instapdrempel, looking for the word, I cannot find it, sorry for the English listeners, is becoming a lot less difficult. The entry barrier, yes, I have it, has become a lot lower. And it's way easier to set up a campaign that is actually set up in the right way, because it's the algorithm taking over. Then again, the creative aspect of it has become a lot harder and a lot more important. I say that because, as the performance strategy or setup has become a commodity, the creatives has not, and a lot of things moving in AI right now as well. But that's the main competitive advantage that you can have, setting up your content in the right way, Also, testing wise, I think that's something that we do as a service provider in a very early stage. There are so many value propositions that could interact with certain buyer persona, and it's actually the content, the way that you set up the content. For example, let's have a product that focus on the sporting category, the same product that actually talks to the sporting category compared to workers, professionals. It's the creative that lets you decide what the targeting will be. So the sporting angle that you put in that creative will decide where Meta will show those ads. You're not actually giving Meta the audiences, but you're using the creative to target specific individuals. And the algorithm knows, okay, this is a sporting angle, so we'll show it to sporters. So that's something that we do often very early stage, and you're finding your audience and your correct value proposition that resonates with the correct audience through those creatives is something super interesting to do. Something that also you need to take time for to actually do in the right way, because it's not about just putting that creative out there and letting it run. It's actually thinking about, okay, how is this creative gonna help me do my perform and help me reach my objectives?
Yeah. So one of the first things you'll do is you'll set up the campaigns, but that has become easier.
Yeah.
But to set up those campaigns, you'll need the videos, you'll need the images, the graphic designs, and so on. So
yeah,
you'll look at what specifically then to create those images.
You will create a creative roadmap based on your buyer persona, based on your value proposition, your USPs. You will create different creative assets that might resonate with your audience. You will test those creatives and put them in a bundle, and that will let you decide, okay, apparently, especially in early stage brands, we see that this angle performs way better. We can be very bold, for example, or we should be more focused on the ecological aspect of our brands. That's the kind of testing that you have to do, and it might also impact your website, your overall communication. And this is the interesting thing that you can do with D2C. You can run an ad that changes the way that you position yourself. I think it's that kind of thinking is possible for early stage brands once you have product market fit again, and that you're in a different stage of your company. Yeah, you made decisions, and at that point, it's not that you can fluctuate that fast. But that's the way that I look at it. Yes.
Maybe to mention the buzzword or the elephant in the room here, the AI part. We're talking around 2023 now.
Yeah.
We talked about 2020.
Yeah.
What about 2024? Is AI going to be dominant there?
Yeah, I think dominant for sure. I think next year it will be about the complementary aspect behind it. Humans actually using AI in the proper way and working together to come up with the best possible outcome. We're using AI right now. I think for copywriting, for example, to have we write one angle ourselves and ask ChatGPT for 5 different versions of that same headline. It's super complementary to what we're doing. It's not there yet where we see, okay, we can actually just give it random input and it will create magic. It's not there. Will it ever be there? I'm quite a futurist on that level. That I believe it will be there. Same with content creation, like a Mid-Journey. Nothing we give as prompts there and the output that comes out. We believe that it's possible to actually put out in a campaign. It's not on that level. Why it is interesting for us, example, in this stage, is to actually use a Mid-Journey that generates creatives based on a prompt. Is, for example, to show to a client the idea that we have in our head at that point. Yeah. So we have an idea. It's difficult to communicate that idea. We can use Mid-Journey and prompts to actually show our idea or concept, and then actually create a quality output based on that mid-journey creative.
Yeah, interesting. Something we haven't talked about yet, but I'm really curious to hear your standpoint. There is, what about email marketing? Would you do it from the start, or?
Basics for sure. So having a welcome flow. We use Klaviyo most often. I think it's the best e-commerce / email marketing tool out there because it presents you with all the data that you need to actually build out a company and then an e-commerce company. I think in the early stages, set the basics right, and with the basics I mean abandonment card. Make sure that your welcome flow is correctly set up. Once you subscribe to something, get a discount or an ebook or something valuable that's behind it. I think three flows that are actually have 2 mails behind it. Sending out campaigns to your current customers is a no-brainer, 1 or 2 per month. The question I think it can also be is, when does it get interesting to actually go on a more advanced level? That's again when you have actually proven that there is product market fit, that you have enough volume to actually make that investment, to put 10K to actually having someone, a designer / copywriter / strategist, who actually sets up those campaigns in the proper way with A/B testing and all those different variables. I think for retention, it's a no-brainer to actually do that, but also for on an acquisition level, it can get super interesting. And I think based on classic D2C brands, that a lot of them are doing it well, but it's quite astonishing how much money there is still on the table of actually forgetting to set up a proper email marketing flow. That's quite amazing actually that it still happens.
Yeah, interesting. Any specific learnings from Puzzle on the Back from email marketing?
Watch out with spamming spamming is a big word, but I actually mean not segmenting your audiences in the proper way. Make sure that people who are not opening, engaging with your email content, that you actually not send them a lot of emails, because they will be bad for your reputation to Gmail, to Hotmail, to all those email providers. And the chance of you sending out an email and actually with someone who engages ending up in a spam folder will become higher because of that. So segmenting, even in early stage phase where you think, I have 500 subscribers, I'm just going to send that email to everyone. No, there might be 50 out there that don't care about your brand anymore, or I don't know what happened. Make sure that those people are excluded. It will help you build up a good reputation, because you can actually imagine that you have 50K subscribers and that you spammed all those from the start by just sending emails to everyone. It might hurt your reputation in a way that your email database has become totally worthless. That's something that is, of course, a bad investment.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. No, interesting. Next to that, I'm interested in hearing what you've done from a strategy point of view with Puzzle on the Back. You started out in Flanders. You expanded to the Netherlands afterwards.
Yeah.
Was that a good strategy? Why did you make that decision?
Yeah, I think a lot of digital first brands make the decision to, once they started in Flanders, to just go to the Netherlands. Makes sense, since let's say that language barrier is not that difficult to get over. What we've seen is it's not that easy, first of all. There's a foundation that is often neglected when starting in a new country. When we started Puzzle on the Back, we got all those things that I mentioned. We got PR. We were quite loud on every channel. There was a lot of word of mouth. We did events. We were out there. Then just going to the Netherlands, you think we have paid ads who bring in most of the acquisitions. Let's just create that same type of funnel in the Netherlands and see what happens. What is often neglected is the fact that you have that foundation in that country, but not in the other country, and that you expect the same thing without actually doing the effort of building out those basics in that country. And that's definitely something that is harder to do. Also because I imagine from a PR point of view, two Belgian guys who started a puzzle company in the Netherlands, really care factor is zero. So it's a lot harder, but it's still something that needs to be done to do it in the proper way. Scaling abroad is not just scaling your advertising efforts. It's way more than that.
Yeah, interesting. Did you start a a second store to that then? To like if
A
you
Shopify
went,
store, you mean?
yeah,
Yeah, we did. We started a German and French store. Now we know that with Shopify has changed, so we can actually, it would have been possible to keep it in one store. It's something also I think, that we might have done too early at that stage, because we simply that fit that I was talking about. Those acquisitions that were coming in were more expensive. So if I've done it, if I would have to do it again, I would have waited with actually building new stores in those new companies, in those new countries. Also, Klaviyo, if you have email marketing connected to that, you have to change all the languages.
Yep.
It's quite an effort that goes through it. We've done it with a couple of clients now in a different way, and testing through ads is still a very good way to actually see if it makes sense to go to that country and actually make decisions based on that first test, and then starting building out all those Shopify / Klaviyo and all those other elements.
Yeah, the real investment comes later once you've proven that the ads, that there's a certain interest, there's a click-through rate, but not a certain buying behavior. You'll test it, but you'll mostly test it on the let's say the early metrics of click-through, on maybe comments on the ads. And
I think based on soft KPIs, it's very dangerous. If you, for example, look at the French part of the country in Belgium, you will see that all those soft KPIs are actually way more positive than the Flemish ones. But if you start a company, or if you want to build up a market in those regions, you will see customer acquisition costs being actually the highest. So I would actually not recommend to do it that way, and to not base yourself on soft KPIs. Just building the actual proper store, of having them come into a Shopify store that is maybe done with an app, translated with an app in the proper way, and then actually having them buy products, and having those hard KPIs like customer acquisition cost, ROAS, and make decisions based on that. Logistically, it can be a bit more complicated, especially if you're shipping to a country that is a bit more far away. But I think it's worth the investment of not making the wrong decision afterwards.
To make sure that I completely understand it, you would, if you were to do it or repeat it this year, you would focus on Flanders, get everything right in Flanders, and then do a test with Meta, and see what kind of conversions come in which country, and then afterwards only make the bigger investments. Yeah,
and make sure to decide upon a North Star KPI that tells you, if we attain that, then we will do that. Yep. If it's just very fluffy and let's see what happens and the best country wins, the best country might still not be the right country. The best country might tell you that you actually have to just remain in Flanders and, for example, the Netherlands for now. Yep. That can also be an option. So setting up your KPIs before that, your target KPIs before actually doing that, I think it's one of the most crucial aspects behind that whole story.
Yeah, something that I really want to touch upon, because you've had an interesting, let's say, time time of experience from 2020 to 2023. You've had the agency, you've had Puzzle in the Bag, your own brand. But we've had, like you mentioned before, in 2021, the privacy updates. Oh, what has changed? You've seen it change both on a brand level, on an agency level, and how do you cope with it?
Coping with it, I don't know if anyone can cope with it, but it has changed the game for sure. I think on an agency level, now it's getting better because the tools are getting better. That helps us with making the right decisions and showing the right data. But the moment that it happened and the year afterwards was the wild, wild west. I think from an agency level, the most frustrating experience was having to tell a story where you say, we're going to show you data, but we know it's incorrect by, let's say, 40%. That's an awful experience. As I mentioned, now we've put in place the right tools to make sure that that data is collected in the proper way. Will it be 100% correct? I don't think so, to be honest. I think I had this, talks with clients the last couple of days where they even tell us that the Shopify data was incorrect. So if the source, let's say, is incorrect, how can you imagine that the third-party tools will show you the right numbers? So I think it's also always something that we have to take with a pinch of salt. But now it's getting better. We understand more the platforms themselves, as we already talked about, have decided to pivot in a way and to let the algorithm take more decisions. And in that way, we can start having the proper data again. But from a client level, a client or founder of a D2C store, it was mostly those customer acquisition costs went to the roof. I used to be able to target people who love puzzles. Imagine that. Not possible anymore. I think that was a game changer. Targeting a niche audience where you have that data in front of you, knowing that they love the product that you sell in a way, or they have an affinity for it, was something that is now lacking. Okay, the data that Meta collects can still interpret it, that kind of knowledge behind that person, but it has changed the whole game. And I think it's also one of the main reasons why that whole omni-channel, multi-channel experience has become way more important, and then it's not possible anymore to build a Shopify/Meta type of business.
So in a way, if I'm correct here, or definitely correct me if I'm not, in a way, Apple forced us to go a bit more omni-channel.
That's a way to tell it. I cannot argue with that. It's quite
it's a shortcut.
A shortcut, but that would be correct.
Interesting. So I think at the first part of our conversation, you went over the product founder fit. That it was super important that you were passionate about your product. Probably in the sense that if there is no fit, or there's no product market fit, that you can always go deeper and find out why it's not a product market fit and change and pivot and so all these things.
Yeah.
Next to that, you said Meta is still king, let's say, of conversions, but you would still have a bit more time spent on other things, such as the omni-channel part, such as other channels as TikTok, Pinterest possibly, and so on, because it used to be much more dominant than it is today.
Yeah.
But it's still very dominant, right?
Yeah, and it's also a big risk, and depending that much on one channel. I think last Sunday, there was a crash on Meta that tripled the CPMs and thus so also tripled the customer acquisition costs. If you're a multinational company that is dependent on Meta or partly dependent on Meta that day,
that sucks.
You don't want that to happen for 1 week. Otherwise, it will be an issue. So I think being less dependent on one channel is something that every digital first company should try for.
Okay. Interesting advice. Next to that, we talked around email marketing and setting it up lean and mean, and afterwards going towards a bigger and higher investment if necessary, and then how to expand abroad. First, focus on your home market because you have the advantage of all the things because you're very loud in your own home market, but it's much harder to do so in other markets.
Yep.
Definitely wanted to repeat all those things because my next question is anything else that you'd like to add to that list of things that you definitely need to do before before starting your company in 2023?
Yeah, I think ratio wise, you have to look for the metric that has become way more crucial, I think, and it's a bit a summary of what you just said, is that you're looking at 50% organic traffic and 50% paid traffic. That's a ratio that every digital first company that is running the marathon rather than the sprint should be looking out for.
Okay, super. Thank you for that final answer. Thank you for joining me with all those interesting insights. I hope you enjoyed listening to Dimitri. If you have any other questions, we'll be holding these deep dives very often. So please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, John.